Angel's Landing. This horrifying Kansas compound and commune harbored a chilling secret in the early 2000s. Led by Lou Castro, followers saw him as an 1,000-year-old angel who could predict death. The self-proclaimed seer led a group of mainly women across various states in the U.S. and demanded intercourse with his followers so he could stay alive. The authorities were suspicious of Castro's money, but only the death of 2 cult members in 2003 and 2006 started investigations. Detective Ron Goodwin uncovered a disturbing pattern: frequent deaths followed by hefty insurance payouts to Castro's circle. Castro vanished, but in 2010, he was exposed as Daniel Perez, a Texas fugitive with a history of crimes. At Angel's Landing, Perez's reign of terror included abuse of minors and manipulation. In 2015, Perez faced justice, convicted of 28 felonies, including murder and his sentence, 80 years behind bars. The Family, renowned as one of Australia's most infamous cults, the Family was founded by Anne Hamilton Byrne, a yoga instructor who deemed herself the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. Collaborating with parapsychologist Raynor Johnson in the mid-1960s, they established what was initially dubbed the Great White Brotherhood. Over years, Hamilton Byrne acquired 28 children, gifted by members or through fraudulent means, aspiring to create a master race to survive an impending apocalypse. While adults were titled aunties or uncles, Hamilton Byrne asserted herself as the biological mother of all children, claiming divine status. She subjected them to abuse if they failed to meet her standards, including beatings, starvation, and drugs. Hidden from visitors, the cult remained undetected until a 1987 raid led to the children's rescue. Despite facing charges for falsifying birth certificates, Hamilton Byrne evaded serious repercussions. In 2019, she passed away at 98. Children of God. The Family International, once known as the Children of God, traces its origins to Huntington Beach, California, where rogue preacher David Brant Berg founded it in 1968, initially as Teens for Christ. Attracting young runaways and hippies, Berg blended Jesus Christ's teachings with the free love movement of the 60s. Group living, fervent evangelism, and isolated communes defined the church, with membership peaking at 15,000 worldwide. In the late 70s, the cult gained notoriety for sexual practices termed religious prostitution by Berg's daughter. Berg advocated flirty fishing, wherein women allegedly engaged in sex to recruit members. Disturbingly, he endorsed sexualizing children within the community. Numerous former members recount sexual assault and abuse during childhood. Joaquin Phoenix's family left the cult in 1977 due to suspicions of its darker nature. Despite Berg's death in 1994 amid FBI scrutiny, the cult persists. While claiming to have abandoned past atrocities, it continues its mission, though its current membership remains uncertain. The Church of Synanon. Synanon began as a drug rehab program in 1958, but devolved into one of America's most perilous cults. Led by Charles Dederick, it morphed into the Church of Synanon by the 1970s. To enter the Synanon community, individuals had to make a profound commitment. During their initial 90 days, members were mandated to sever all ties with friends and family outside the group. Under Dederick's reign, Synanon employed coercive tactics like the game. This was disguised as a form of group therapy, but was used for psychological manipulation, humiliation, brainwashing, and control of members. In a disturbing turn, starting in the mid-1970s, Synanon enforced draconian measures on its members. Women were compelled to shave their heads, while married couples were forcibly separated and assigned new partners. Men underwent forced vasectomies, and some pregnant women were coerced into having abortions. Dederick's thirst for power led to exorbitant fees, labor exploitation, and escalating violence. An internal group called the Imperial Marines carried out brutal beatings, and a hit list targeted dissenters. Synanon's reign of terror ended in 1991 due to tax fraud and terrorism charges. Dederick's death in 1997 marked the end of an era, but remnants persist in Germany and Sydney, serving as a chilling reminder of the cult's enduring legacy. Aum Shinrikyo. Founded in 1984 by Shoko Asahara, the Japanese Doomsday cult Aum Shinrikyo catapulted into infamy in the late 80s over allegations of coercion, financial manipulation, and even murder of its members. Like many cult leaders, Asahara prophesied an impending apocalypse, envisaging a world war triggered by the United States, where only his followers would endure. He also declared himself as Christ, Japan's sole fully enlightened master, and the Lamb of God to cement his divine status within his cult. In July 1993, The cult attempted an anthrax attack from their Tokyo headquarters, but it faltered. However, their notoriety peaked with the 1995 sarin gas assault in the Tokyo subway, claiming 12 lives and injuring 50. Subsequently, investigations uncovered their involvement in the murder of lawyer Tsutsumi Sakamoto, his wife, and child, along with the Matsumoto sarin attack in 1994, which killed another 8 people. In 2018, Asahara met his fate with a death sentence, followed by the execution of several high-ranking members for their crimes. Scientology. The Church of Scientology, devised by American author L. Ron Hubbard, straddles the line between cult, business, religion, and scam. Initially conceived as Dianetics Therapy in 1950, Hubbard rebranded it as Scientology after his organization promoting Dianetics went bankrupt in 1952. Key beliefs involve reincarnation and the removal of problematic engrams through auditing, a service the church makes you pay a lot of money for. Once you paid enough money and an auditor deems you as clear, you're allowed to participate in the Thetan program, of course, necessitating further payments. Their practices are highly manipulative, and they want you to give up any of your interests other than Scientology. The cult also opposes psychiatry and psychology, advocating for its own methods as alternatives. In the early 1950s, Hubbard and his early Dianetics organization even faced prosecution for practicing medicine without a license. Scientology has faced accusations of criminal behavior, harassment of critics, and enforced disconnection from perceived enemies. Allegations of physical abuse and human rights violations persist, including lawsuits against the organization. Hubbard's organization has been called a dangerous cult, anti-constitutional sect, and a manipulative profit-making business by many governments around the world. Celebrity endorsements from figures like Tom Cruise and John Travolta have brought Scientology into the limelight, despite ongoing controversies and legal battles. Estimates put the number of Scientologists at around 40,000 worldwide. Heavenly Jerusalem. This cult emerged as a splinter group from the Russian Orthodox Church under the leadership of Pyotr Kuznetsov. Members were strictly forbidden from consuming processed foods, watching television, or handling money. They vehemently rejected barcodes, social security numbers, and other national identification systems, viewing them as symbols of satanic influence. In 2007, approximately 30 members of the group retreated to a cave near the village of Nikolskoye. Kuznetsov, awaiting the prophesied end of the world in 2008, told them that they need to hide there. Remarkably, he did not join them in the cave. They still went and vowed to commit suicide by explosion if authorities intervened. Tragically, 2 members perished in the cave, one from cancer and the other from starvation. Getting worried about the toxic fumes from the deceased and the cave's structural instability, after 6 months, 14 members came out of the cave and 9 came out later. The leader of this cult attempted suicide when his doomsday prophecy failed to materialize. His current whereabouts remain unknown. Heaven's Gate. Founded by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles in the 1970s, Heaven's Gate was an ascetic cult with a complex belief system centered on aliens, spaceships, and an impending Earth recycling. They believed their only chance for survival was to depart Earth. The leaders also believed themselves to be the 2 witnesses of Revelation, gathering a following of several hundred individuals by the mid-1970s. They demanded a strict and minimalist way of life from their members, focusing on spiritual growth and detachment from material possessions or desires, and even castration of their male members, which they tried in-house, almost killing a member. After Nettles' death in 1985, Applewhite intensified their beliefs. In 1997, he claimed a spacecraft trailed the Hale-Bopp comet, offering salvation to members. In a rented San Diego home, Applewhite and 38 followers consumed phenobarbital mixed with applesauce, chased with vodka, and asphyxiated themselves with plastic bags. They were convinced they were shedding their earthly vessels for a higher existence and that they wouldn't die. The group's website, maintained by 2 followers, endures as a haunting relic of their beliefs and tragic end. The People's Temple. The People's Temple was a cult led by Jim Jones. It emerged in 1954 in Indianapolis, Indiana, aligning Christianity with socialist principles and racial equality. Jones, initially a charismatic figure, gradually exerted greater control over his followers. Relocating to California in the 1960s, the temple expanded, boasting ties with leftist political figures and claiming thousands of members. Jones, foreseeing nuclear war, resettled his followers in Guyana, envisioning safety from potential conflict. The tragic climax occurred on November 18, 1978, in Jonestown, Guyana, where 909 people perished in a mass suicide. After ex-members began exposing the church's practices, San Francisco Congressman Leo Ryan traveled to Jonestown to probe allegations of abuse. Upon arrival, Temple security personnel killed Ryan's delegation. Back at the settlement, Jones commanded and forced his followers to consume a lethal drink spiked with cyanide. Following the tragedy, the temple declared bankruptcy and its assets were seized. Despite legal battles, its buildings in Los Angeles, Indianapolis, and Redwood Valley remain standing as haunting reminders of its dark history. Order of the Solar Temple. Founded in 1984 by Joseph DiMambro and Luc Jouret, the Order of the Solar Temple blended medieval Knights Templar traditions with New Age spiritualism, prophesying the world's end in the 1990s. Operating in Switzerland, France, and Canada, the cult's Doomsday focus attracted a growing following and substantial funds. DiMambro, a convicted fraudster and jeweler, partnered with Jouret, a Belgian homeopath, to lead the group. Their leadership was marked by violence, including the alleged murder of a Quebec family who spoke against the cult. The cult was also investigated over arms trafficking, embezzlement, and money laundering in multiple countries. Amid legal scrutiny and internal strife, the founders orchestrated mass suicides and murders in 1994. 2 buildings associated with the Order of the Solar Temple in Switzerland were engulfed in flames. Investigators made a harrowing discovery. 48 bodies were found inside. Some victims had gunshot wounds, others were discovered with bags over their heads, and some had been injected with tranquilizers. Subsequent years witnessed further suicides in France and Quebec, resulting in a total of 77 deaths. Despite these tragedies, the Order of the Solar Temple persists today, boasting several hundred members. NXIVM. Keith Raniere's NXIVM, launched in 1998, purported to offer self-help workshops, but masked a dark reality. A clandestine society within NXIVM operated as a sex cult, exploiting women under false pretenses of empowerment. Raniere, self-styled as Vanguard, presided over a pyramid scheme where he held the apex, dubbed Masters, recruited women into the inner circle, and new members became slaves. Raniere manipulated followers with claims of unparalleled intelligence and ethics, exploiting them sexually and psychologically. He also blackmailed members with compromising documents if they ever told anyone about the group's existence. In a chilling initiation ritual, new members had to give their master naked photos and endured branding, each carrying Raniere's initials above their pelvis. Smallville actress Allison Mack, implicated in recruiting slaves for the cult, faced federal charges, including sex trafficking. She pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 3 years in June 2021. The founder Raniere, found guilty on multiple counts, including exploiting a child, received a 120-year prison sentence in October 2020. The Manson Family. Charles Manson formed his cult group in San Francisco in 1967 before relocating to Los Angeles later that year, where he pursued a failed music career. Manson's predominantly female followers, influenced by his white supremacist ideology and magnetic personality, believed him to be a reincarnation of Jesus, prophesying a race war between whites and blacks. Under Manson's spell, approximately 100 followers embraced a lifestyle fueled by psychoactive drugs. Manson fixated on the Beatles' song Helter Skelter, envisioning it as the catalyst for an apocalyptic race war. In August 1969, he orchestrated the brutal murders of actress Sharon Tate and others. Manson's motives remain debated, from inciting Helter Skelter to seeking vengeance on a music producer. Manson, convicted of 9 murders, remained imprisoned until his death in 2017, while some of his followers still serve sentences for their roles in the atrocities. The Branch Davidians. This was an apocalyptic cult that emerged in 1955 under Benjamin Roden, later separating from the Davidian Seventh-day Adventists. Following Roden's demise in 1978, his wife Lois assumed prophetic leadership at the compound called Mount Carmel in Texas. In 1987, David Koresh seized control from Roden's son George, altering the group's teachings and prophesying the imminent end of the world. Koresh, claiming lineage to biblical figures, including King David and Cyrus the Great, instituted polygamous relationships, including with underage girls, aiming to breed future leaders. He even had an affair with the initial founder's wife Lois, while he was in his 20s while she in her 60s. Amid accusations of child abuse and illegal weapon possession, the law enforcement agency ATF attempted a raid on Mount Carmel, resulting in a deadly shootout. Subsequently, the FBI's 51-day siege ended tragically, with the compound engulfed in flames. Koresh and 76 others perished, with investigations later suggesting the Branch Davidians initiated the fire. Today, various groups claim descent from the Branch Davidians, perpetuating their legacy. The Commandments Cult. This sect, based in the Kanungu district of Uganda, emerged in the 1980s, preaching adherence to the 10 Commandments as a means to survive the impending apocalypse, which the leaders believed would arrive on December 31st, 1999. Leaders enforced strict rules within the sect like regular fasting, even discouraging talking, intercourse, and using soap. As the new year approached, the leaders urged members to prepare for the apocalypse, selling their belongings, giving away their money to the cult, and confessing their sins. However, when January 1st, 2000 passed without incident, doubts arose, and financial support for the church declined. Some members rebelled, demanding the return of their money. In response, the leaders shifted the date to March 17th, promising the real end. Tragically, on that day, the leaders themselves orchestrated a horrific event. They lured them inside the cult church, set it on fire, and barred the doors, resulting in the deaths of as many as 530 people inside, including dozens of children. Following the fire, authorities discovered hundreds more bodies in various compounds across Uganda. Many of the victims had been poisoned. In total, 924 people lost their lives to this evil cult. Sadly, to this date, the leaders have not been located and no one has been prosecuted in connection to the massacre. Subscribe for more videos and hit that like button down there to support us. Thanks for watching.